welcome to another episode of Straight from the Desk. This time we will paint a very cool model, the Storm Knight, sculpted by Thomas David for the Kingdom Death range. And it's actually the first Kingdom Death model that I'm painting, so it's also quite exciting for me. I really like the look, especially of these extra characters, and the Storm Knight is one of my favorites, I think, along with the Flower Knight and also the Flower Witch. So yeah, hope you enjoy this step by step. We will paint a pretty cool, nice and easy copper recipe, and as always for non-metal, it's more important where you actually place the lights than how perfect the blendings are. You can get a long way with adding texture, but here we will go for something quite clean first, and then we'll add some oxidations. Alright, hope you enjoy the video, have fun! Okay, so here we are with the wonderful Storm Knight from Kingdom Death, sculpted by the fantastic Thomas David, primed in black. I used Games Workshop black spray paint from the can. You can see it turned out somewhat satin, but this is quite nice as we can check the light reflexes how we want them. Color-wise, we want to really go for something spectacular, so I want to have clouds here, the cloud robe. I want that in tone somewhat between purple, dark blue, so we really get the idea of a stormy cloud where you have just about a second before the lightning hits. And to maximize the contrast, we're going for copper colored armor with some nice oxidation going on, and we will start with that right away. You can see on the palette we have some orange rust from Secret Weapons, some black from Model Color, some Schmincke Titanium White, some Armor Brown, also from the Model Air range, some Japanese Uniform from Model Color, and some Scurvy Green from the Game Color range. Alright, I decided to go for the black spray paint to have a strong contrast from the beginning, and we will start with our copper color, and for that we will use some of the orange rust and mix it with a little bit of black. Okay, and we've used the orange rust before. We've used it in the video of the anti-robot squad sergeant from Nuts Planet to create a very dull and rusty look. This time we will use it to create the copper look. So let's start here with the let's start here with the breastplate. And we have to always decide for a position for the highlight or a direction of the light source. So we will take the brightest spot of our armor here on this side this time to create a stronger shadow here on this area, to create here a very interesting area with the highlights and the color variation of the cloak later on. You can see the color on the palette appears a bit brighter than on the model. It's because it's rather translucent, so at the moment we're working with something between a medium and a light layer consistency, and this way we can still see some of the black foundation underneath shining through. Okay, now with the color here in the same consistency in the back of the brush, some of the pure orange rust here to the front, and we're doing a loaded brush here with just the pure tone to increase the saturation a little. And we can use the mixed tone here on the lower part of the mouth. And with a bit of the pure orange rust in the back of the brush, some titanium white on the tip. I'm increasing the highlight here dramatically to the front. A little bit highlight here and also here. Just a bit of pure white. And now I'm just doing a loaded brush over that area again. And you can see we get like a really dramatic transition here. That is also really nice, nicely clean. And here we have like a very dark color. And now we just need to introduce a bit brighter color here in the back. Not as bright as here in the front. But we will do that with a mixed tone here that we prepare on the palette. A mixed tone of the orange rust and some titanium white in a heavy glaze consistency. And we will just introduce that here. And with a bit more of the orange rust in the mix, just glazing that here over to achieve a nice transition. Okay. Also here at that edge here, a small secondary highlight here. Some pure white for the highlight on the rivet here. And we will continue putting some of the base color here on the upper part of the mask. Also here, just trying not to hit the recesses around these lines here, but just more the inside here of the armor. Okay, I've zoomed in a little, so we're really able to see the finesse here of the small loaded brush. Okay, and I'm aiming for the highlight here along the middle line. And with a bit more white. Here on each of these little bumps. So here along the nostril. And just with some pure white. And with a little bit of that highlight mixed tone, we're blending that in here.
Okay, again, heavy glaze in the back of the brush, some white on the tip, and we're going for that secondary highlight here. Okay, again, first some white here for the highlights. Then we can do the loaded brush here. Okay, we'll let that dry, and I'm adding a slightly thinner glaze, like a medium glaze consistency, the orange rust, and I'm just glazing that here over the mid area. Okay, in the next step we will just use some pure white and add some strong reflective light here. Okay, I've switched to a smaller brush. I'm using a 0007 from Winsor & Newton now for the smaller highlights. Okay, and with a bit of the orange rust, we're blending these out here a little. And a bit of that darker color here, I have to correct this highlight here a little. And we're continuing adding smaller lights on the small volumes like the nostrils here, the tip of the nose, a little bit here. Okay, I already like what's going on contrast-wise, but we have to continue and add more base color and also more highlights to the surface here. To not to bore you guys, I will just continue to put the base color in place, and we'll be back for some more highlight work. Alright, so you can see I continued on the torso with our base tone. I just didn't really went all the way into the recesses to keep the black, kind of as a black lining. Alright, so we'll continue with our highlight work, and we'll do that again with the loaded brush, using some of the orange rust and some white on the tip, not that much, because we're going here for a highlight in here. And you can see I'm trying to rub off the white here and get more color of from the back of the brush on the surface to mix that. Okay, looks already okay, but we have to soft out the highlight here also to the other side. bit thinner this time. Up here. I used the tone a little bit thinner this time because I had a little bit problems getting it off the brush here. So sometimes just switching in the consistency a little bit can be quite helpful. Again, a bit thicker. This is something like a light layer consistency. And some white here for these small highlights here. And here I'm placing the highlights always on the peak of the object, so here on that curve. Up here on that edge. I'm creating a mixed tone of the orange rust and some white here, because back here I can really pull the lower brush, so just doing that with layers of paint. Okay, we need also an intermediate tone here between the white highlight and the color that we've used previously, so and that should work. Okay, you can see how that side here already looks really nice, nicely defined, and I will just continue with the highlight work here in the same manner on that side. I won't go as bright as I did here, just slightly less dark here, and we'll be back here for the lower part and for some color variation. Alright, as you can see, I continued with the base color and also continued here with the highlights. You can see that that prominent highlight that is softened out to both sides that represents our main light source is super important for that area. We will have to do the same here, but less intense. Okay, we're using some orange rust for that, with a tiny bit of white. And we're using that in a medium layer consistency. The leg plate here is shaped like a segment of a cylinder. So the highlight runs here across that cylinder. So here across that plate area here, and also here across these. To get a convincing non-metal look, these continuous highlights here that follow the shape of the object are super important. Okay, also here. Okay, now that the first highlight is dry, we can continue with a stronger highlight. We don't want to have the highlight 100% white. We want to keep it a little less intense than the one here on that side. I think from the intensity that's good. And now we need a tone in between. And we're working with a light layer consistency. And now to both sides, some of that slightly darker tone. Okay, I'm just remixing that paint here in a slightly thicker consistency. And we're using something between heavy layer and light base consistency. And this way we can paint here quite opaque, because we don't want to retouch the plates again. Quite opaque just here, our highlight following the same line here. Okay, a bit more of the orange rust here. I'm just dabbing that here to the side. This is a little bit like dry brushing, so we're just carefully hitting the edges here towards the central light. Okay. Again, a bit of that highlight tone here. Because you can see here, we need to actually also add some of that highlight tone right here in the recess to make it really work. Okay, here as we have the top highlight here from that side, we need our secondary highlight, the same that we did here, also here on that. Maybe even a bit brighter because it's a little different shape. So taking some of that tone here. Of the pure orange rust. And just with a wet brush, feathering that out a bit. And a bit more white here in the mix. We can push the contrast here a bit more. Okay. Again, more orange rust. pure white here. Some highlights along the upper edge. I like the upper ones, but the lower one turned out a little bit too big, so just correcting that using some of our dark base tone. Okay. Pushing the contrast a bit more. By brightening the lower edge here. Okay, and with some pure white again, adding some highlights here on these small raised bits. Oops, and the second one turned out definitely too big, so correcting that. A lot better. Okay, I will just continue working with a little bit thinner glazes here to soften things out, because we really want to have the main highlights here on both sides really nice and soft, because these bright areas really catch some attention, and you want to make sure that if you have the attention, that the technical part holds up with your expectation. Alright, so I'll just push that a bit, and we'll also continue working on here on one of the arms, and we'll be back to do the leg and also the other arm. Alright. Alright, as you can see, I have continued here on the arm and on the mask, and also on the back side, a little bit on the clouds, just to test out some colors. We'll continue here with the lower leg, and also a little here on the arm. Alright. You can see I've also rearranged the palette because it dried out. And we have to remix the base tone, and we will do that with some of the orange rust from Secret Weapon and some of the watercolor black. Okay, working again with the 00 from Winsor & Newton, and here our base tone is something like a heavy layer consistency. You can also see I switched to the black dilution. You can also see I switched to the black dilution helper because we're working with a black foundation, and it's actually quite useful to see how that color covers on a black base coat. We'll take that color to just really get our base tone here, covering in the mid-tone area. This way we can also make sure that we, just with the new tone that we've mixed on the palette, that we have the same tone here underneath. Okay, I think that's already okay. For the next step, we'll just take some of the pure orange rust, and we will use it in about the same consistency, so a heavy layer consistency. And the important thing here for the non-metal is that the light that we've painted in previously, so the main light here to the side and also the secondary light here, is continued here on the leg as well. So our brightest spot needs to be running around here and then here along the middle line of the shoe, and the second one here along the top middle line. So we're working with the orange rust and some pure white on the tip of the brush, and we're introducing a strong light here to the middle line of the mask. And with the mixed tone that we have on the back of the brush, we can just continue highlighting these raised areas here around the eyes of the mask. We'll just continue like that. And I think it's actually quite cool to see how that bit where we started with the lower brush here is quite a lot stronger than the one here, because we lost some of that white here on the beginning of the lower brush. And it's quite cool because we get like a really nice gradient within the transition itself. Okay, and with a bit of pure white we can sketch in our lights here. So on the top reflex here. Okay, and with the mixed tone of the orange rust and some white, and a medium layer consistency, we can just use that here to soft out the maximum highlight a little bit to both sides. Can also use that tone here to highlight the secondary, not as bright highlight to the other side. Okay, and using that mixed tone we can continue the light that we've introduced here also on that upper leg plate here. Soft out also these small highlights here. Okay, I've zoomed in a little, and we'll continue just with some of the pure orange rust to get like a nice transition between that highlight tone and the base tone. Okay, and with some of that dark base tone, just soft that out here towards the shadow. Okay, already quite cool, but we still need that strong highlight here. And we will do that again with the loaded brush. So first I'll highlight pure white and then soft that out with a bit of the orange rust. And I need a bit more of the orange rust. Okay, and because of that cloud bit here, I can't really reach that area here all that well, so I just mixed a little bit lighter tone on the palette, so I can just dab it in here. Okay, that looks already a lot better. And we just need to make sure that the whole thing works also as a whole object, not only the single objects here, like the single plates, but we can see that with having such a strong highlight here on that chin of the little mask, we need definitely a stronger highlight here on the top. And we soft that out a bit. Also a bit stronger here on that very edge. Okay, and with the mixed tone that we have here, with the highlight mixed tone, we also have to continue our highlight here on these little plates. You can see that I'm really carefully, it's a little bit like dry brushing. I'm just carefully pulling the brush from one direction. Now with slightly brighter paint. Okay, I think that's already okay for the plate area. With a slightly darker tone, but still a highlight tone, we can continue adding the lights here to these sides of the plate. Okay, and some orange rust. Pure orange rust, and I'm just feathering that out with a clean brush. I've zoomed out a little just to be able to judge the contrast a little bit better, and looking from further away, I think this area here could be a bit darker, and also here the shadow underneath here. So just adding some black to our base tone. And I'm just glazing that here in the shadow area. And again feathering that out. Okay. Yeah, I think we understood where this is going. It's very important to pay attention to the shape of the object, and we'll just continue here with first loaded brushes to introduce the main highlight, and then with layers and glazes. So continue like that. And yeah, I will just continue with the highlight step, and we'll be back for some color variations. You can see I continued here with the highlight on the leg, and yeah, I think overall it works already really nice from the metallic effect. I said we want to introduce some color variations, but we will do that a little later. We actually have to do a few other things first. So before we get to the arm, let's actually introduce a little bit of that armor color here in that cloud area, because I think it would be quite nice if we get like somewhat like a sheer effect, like sheer cloth, but here just with that cloud material. So as the leg armor here is actually quite complex, we will just do a very basic sketch here of the color. We cannot introduce a lot of detail, and I think it's not really necessary because the cloud should not be all that translucent. So first introducing some base color here, and I tried to hit the spots that are actually the deepest. So here in that area here underneath that raised bit here. Okay, and with some of the pure orange rust, while the color is still wet, we can just wet blend a little bit of a stronger saturated area here. Along that middle highlight that we see here. Okay, we'll let that dry. Okay, now that it's dry, we can continue with a little loaded brush. Just here to introduce that sheen from the armor. Again from this side here. Okay, I think that's already okay for now. You will see later on what how that effect look once we paint the clouds together. Okay, you can see on the back I've actually already progressed quite a bit to just test out a nice looking cloud effect. Okay, so if we take a look at here at the arm from the top, you can see I've painted this one here. And we have our strongest light, here from the side. So we want to have the same light direction here for that piece. So that means here on that half of the mask, we have the shadow side, and here the more highlighted side. One thing that you can notice here is that I actually have the shadow side also here facing that middle edge, but I have somewhat like a horizontal reflection here sketched on the upper side to keep this side here more interesting, and also to have like a nice highlight line across the middle plate here of the mask. And yeah, that is what we'll do now. Okay, so we'll do that with the orange rust in a medium layer consistency, and some of the Schmincke titanium white on the tip of the brush. And you can see that actually the consistency here was not quite right, because the color is running out of the brush a little too easy. So we'll just take some heavier color here and work more with something like a heavy layer consistency on the back of the brush, and we will try that here on this small part, and you can see that works actually a lot better. Okay, and now that this here is dry, we can continue with another loaded brush on top. Okay, I think that one was quite good. And while it's still wet, we can just blend that here together with some of the base tone. Okay, and we'll just continue with detailing this side here a bit with smaller highlights. Okay, and we'll mix a highlight tone here into the side and introduce a little bit of like a back reflection here. Okay, we have to look at it more from the top as well, and introduce also small highlights here. Okay, for this side we can't really pull the loader brush all that well, or at least me, because I have to hold it in front of the camera. So I will use some layers and glazes to introduce that highlight here. So with that premixed highlight tone, I'm introducing a light about in the center of that plate. And we make sure that we have a somewhat hard line to the lower side and a nice transition to the upper side. That represents the reflection of our horizons. And with some of that base tone, a bit more of the orange brown, you can get like a nice transition here. I'm just glazing over the transition area here, just with a very thin glaze that remained in the brush. The more reflective that armor would be, the more precise and sharp those reflections would also be. So, yeah, we don't want a really strong chromey effect, but a nice, decent metallic look. So, okay, that was a little bit too much water in the back of the brush. Just with a dry brush, we can soak up some of that liquid. Okay. And also here we will continue with some smaller pure highlights and pure white. and also in our highlight color. And also some of that highlight tone here, even a bit brighter, to get like a nice little highlight here. Again, a bit too liquid actually. Okay, so I'm remixing that highlight tone a bit more opaque, or in a heavy layer consistency. Oh, that worked a lot better. Okay, we will also continue with these small highlights here on elements like the nostrils or the eye. And yeah, I will also continue like that here on that lower mask, basically the very same way than we did before. And yeah, we'll be finally back for some color variations. Okay? I think we just need some very few, and you can see I switched to an even smaller brush. This is a 5.0 from the Da Vinci series, and we're working with quite a thick consistency, so let's zoom in for that. That step is just perfect to also hide some mistakes in the blending that we've done. So you can see here, there's a little spot where we can just add like a tiny scratch, adding a lighter line. Okay. You have to make sure that the color you use fits from the brightness here, so it should just be a little bit brighter than the surrounding area. Go a little bit brighter here towards the edge, so you really have an almost three-dimensional effect. A bit darker again. A bit darker again. That. Okay. And yeah, we can just continue like that. So a larger one here, and with a bit of pure white. Just here. Okay. As I said, we don't want to overdo it, so just on a few prominent spots here. So here, using some of the Model Color Amo Brown, you can get some darker lines in here. If the transition is actually quite perfect, but we still want to scratch, we need to do the darker line first. And then upright the one just underneath. And with a bit of pure white here to the edge. A bit brighter. That way you get like a really nice structured effect. Okay, so let me switch the brush. Okay. I'm now working again with the slightly larger 00 from Winsor & Newton. And we're working with some of the Scurvy Green here from the Game Color range. And I'm adding a bit of white to the mix. A bit more white. And we want to get some nice little color variation and oxidation on our armor. As I said before, this is more a copper armor than a gold armor. Not 100% decided, but copper gets a nice green oxidation, so we will use that in areas where humidity would accumulate, somewhere to the lower side of each of the plates. We don't have to do it on all of the plates, so we will just pick out a few spots here. And you can see consistency wise we're working with something between a medium and a heavy glaze. Also here around the rivets. Okay, and a bit darker as well. Using just the pure Scurvy Green as a light glaze for the more shadowy areas here. You have to be careful because the color itself is quite intense and you don't really want to overdo it, so be gentle and careful and just glaze bit by bit. So we're also introducing it here on these little elements. And with the darker one here, just in between. So here on the lower side of the chin of that face mask. You can see I'm also dotting a bit here to have a variation in the texture. And you can really see how much life that adds to the surface with just these few spots here already. And yeah, we'll just continue. Also to introduce it a little bit here on that side. So in here, just like it would be leaking down here. I really like the idea of have something like a storm knight, which is actually the center of the storm, and naturally some humidity would gather on his armor, and by just introducing that oxidation here, we not only have a nice little play in contrast and color, but we also get a little bit of like a storytelling aspect to that element. Okay, we'll just continue like that, and we'll be back for the next little color variation. So you can see I continued with the oxidation, and I really like the look so far. So one thing that we need to do before we one thing that we need to do before we decide if we want to do some more color variation is we need to paint the helmet, and that is what we'll do next. And for the helmet I want to introduce a slightly different color. You can see here I want the masks to be actually more of a yellow gold than the rest of the armor. So so you might have wondered, back here on the palette we have the Japanese uniform for the whole time, and we haven't been using it, so now it's the time for the Japanese uniform with some black and a tiny bit of the armor brown as our dark base tone for the gold masks. Okay, so we will start with somewhat heavy, between heavy and medium base color consistency, and we've zoomed in a little to actually see a little bit better what's happening. So we're introducing a tone here towards the mid side of the face. It's a bit strange that I like the design that you have the different masks looking in the different direction, but not really towards the front. But it's a little bit challenging for us here to place actually the highlights. So my layout here for the highlights will be the secondary highlight here, and like with the masks, the strongest one here to the side. So yeah, let's continue first with our base tone here. And with a bit more black here to the side. Also a bit more of the armor brown can create a darker shade. and already work that in here towards the middle line. Okay, now with the pure Japanese uniform here to the side, we can push the contrast here to this side a bit more, and also the saturation of that yellow color. Okay. And with the Japanese uniform in a medium layer consistency in the back of the brush and some white on the tip, we can push that highlight here. Okay, and put a clean wet brush, feather that top palette out here a bit. Okay, and we will continue here highlighting these little edges. So here on the top of the brow, that bit is a bit raised. And put some pure white, pushing that highlight here a little bit more. Okay, so far so good. Here we need a little bit of highlight color, not pure white, but nice and bright, just here for these detail highlights. Okay, also here along the top line. Okay, and for the other side we'll start with the same way. So first introducing our base tone here. And this time we will focus, okay, putting some of the Japanese uniform in the back of the brush. Some white on the tip. And this time we're introducing the strongest light here towards the edge. And we continue with the second loaded brush. Okay, and with some white we can continue adding detail highlights. Okay, you can see it already looks pretty cool. I'll just push the contrast a little bit, mixing here a darker color by adding more dark sea blue, mixing a shadow color, adding more armor brown and also black to the mix here. And with a clean brush, just feather that. And with a clean brush, I can just feather that out. Okay, I will just continue with the other masks, and we'll be back to complete the middle part of the helmet on cam again. Alright, so as you can see, I continued with the gold masks, and yeah, I think the look looks really cool. We need to still do the centerpiece here of the helmet. That has quite a awkward shape actually. It has an edge in the middle, and then it's rounded here to the top. I decided to also go for that copper tone for that part of the helmet to have like a little color variation in the helmet. And we're starting with that base tone here. And we're using the base tone quite opaque, so we're working with a medium base tone consistency here. Okay, the first thing that we want to do is we want to introduce that strong highlight here on the top. We're going for a round highlight, as this part here is rounded If you remember, the light comes slightly from the side, and we have our strong mid reflex here. So we're going for position about here. And we'll first introduce a brighter tone using some of the orange rust. A small round dot, and mixed with some of the darker base tone, you can just dab around that circle. So got like a little bit of a wet blending. Okay. And with some pure white. And now with the mixed tone of the orange rust and some white, we can work that in here to get like a nice little transition. We want that highlight to be quite strong and dominant because it's really like in the center of one of our focus points here on the model. I really like that already. And the next thing that we have to do is we have to work out that edge here. Okay, with the clean brush, I'm picking up some shadow color to place that here to this side of the helmet, pulling it more to the lower side here, and with the highlight tone that we've been using previously, I'm just highlighting it from the other side. And with a bit of the pure orange rust. Just glazing here over the transition area. Okay, and a bit brighter, using some pure white. With a slightly darker mixed tone. I'm just getting that transition here. You can see that the line is not 100% straight because the dark base color was actually still a little bit wet, so I went over the edge and it mixed a little. So we have to correct that. Using some of the shadow color. Okay, a bit darker, adding more black. Okay, I'm going to do the edge again. Sometimes this is a little back and forth, but it's really important to get these elements really sharp, especially when they're here so close to the center of attention. Okay, and also with a bit pure white, I'm pushing that contrast here a little. Okay, yeah, I really like the look of that. Okay, so I think I will just correct here that highlight a little bit, and yeah, that would be it for the armor part. So Let me just get that here really nice and perfect. Just with a little addition here to the side, you can see that that shape looks a lot more hard-edged. Alright, so the next part that we will do is we will actually not introduce another color variation, because I think the tonal range that we have going on is already really cool, and once we have the clouds in place, we can actually see if we need some more additions color-wise. We will see the clouds in the next chapter. Alright?
Hey guys, now that the armor is painted, I think it already looks very cool. We have that strong contrast, a really nice color combination, I think, between that cooler gold tone and the copper. The copper and the gold are quite close to each other, but I really like that because it makes it somehow mystical. Also, I think the oxidation really help to play with the color contrast, and once we add the clouds, you will see also the shear effect on the leg will make things quite interesting, also the interaction of the different colors. And yeah, thanks again for your support, and have a happy Christmas time. Alright, thanks for watching, bye!